In a hospital hallway, Sarah faced an impossible choice. Save her father or save her boyfriend's father. Only one doctor. Only one surgery. One must die. She chose. But that choice unleashed a 20-year-old secret that revealed Sarah's entire life was built on murder, lies, and conspiracy that reached the highest levels of two powerful families. What happens next will leave you speechless. Before we begin, drop a comment. What time is it where you are? Let's start. The rain hammered down on the dark New York streets like angry fists. Sarah Hayes pressed her face against the cold window of the taxi, watching the city lights blur into rivers of gold and red. "Please hurry," she whispered to the driver. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Marcus Morrison. "Where are you? My father is getting worse." Sarah's heart squeezed tight in her chest. Marcus's father, William Morrison, was dying, and her own father, Robert Hayes, was in the same hospital, fighting for his life after a terrible car crash just 3 hours ago. But here was the problem, the horrible, impossible problem that made Sarah want to scream. There was only one doctor who could save them. Dr. Chun was the best heart surgeon in all of New York, maybe in all of America. And tonight, both men needed him at the exact same time. The taxi splashed through a puddle and stopped in front of Mount Sinai Hospital. Sarah threw money at the driver and ran inside, her shoes squeaking on the shiny floor. The hospital smelled like cleaning spray and fear. "Sarah." She turned and saw Marcus running toward her. He was tall and handsome, with dark hair that stuck up like he'd been pulling at it. His eyes were red. "Marcus, Sarah started to say, but he grabbed her hands. "They're saying Dr. Chun can only do one surgery tonight," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "One surgery. Sarah, my father or yours. They want us to choose." Sarah felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. That's crazy. They can't make us choose between our fathers." "I know." Marcus pulled her close. "But the hospital says there's no time. Both surgeries take 6 hours. By morning, one of them will be dead." Sarah wanted to cry, but she was too shocked. Her father, Robert Hayes, owned half of Manhattan. His real estate company built the tallest towers, the fanciest hotels. He was powerful. He was rich. He was supposed to be safe. And William Morrison? He ran the biggest tech investment company in the country. The Morrison family had so much money, they could buy a small country. But money couldn't save them tonight. Not both of them. "There you are." A sharp voice cut through the hospital noise. Sarah turned and saw her mother, Catherine Hayes, marching toward them like a queen going to battle. Behind her came Marcus's mother, Elena Morrison, and his uncle, Daniel Morrison. Catherine's face was white with anger. "Get away from my daughter, Marcus Morrison." "Mom, please," Sarah begged. "Your family did this." Catherine pointed a shaking finger at Elena Morrison. This crash was an accident. Someone cut the brakes on Robert's car. Elena Morrison's eyes went wide. "How dare you? William's car was hit too. If anyone planned this, it was your family." The two mothers stood in the bright hospital hallway, glaring at each other like two wolves ready to fight. Daniel Morrison stepped between them. He was younger than his brother William, with kind eyes and a sad smile. "Ladies, please. This isn't helping. Our families have been friends for 30 years. We've built businesses together. Our children love each other." He looked at Sarah and Marcus. "We can't let this destroy us." "Friends." Catherine laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Your brother has been trying to steal our company for years. And now this convenient accident. My brother is dying." Elena shouted. "You think he crashed his own car?" A doctor in blue scrubs rushed up to them. "Excuse me, but you're all being too loud. This is a hospital." "Dr. Chun?" Sarah asked hopefully. "No, I'm Dr. Williams." The young doctor looked tired and worried. "Dr. Chun is scrubbing in for surgery now, but the hospital board needs a decision. Which patient gets the surgery first?" Everyone went quiet. Sarah felt Marcus's hand squeeze hers tighter. She looked into his eyes and saw the same fear she felt. How could they choose? If Sarah said, "Save my father," Marcus's father would die. If Marcus said, "Save my father," then Sarah's father would die. And whoever they chose, the other family would hate them forever. "I'll do it," said a voice. Everyone turned. An old woman in a wheelchair rolled toward them. She had white hair and a face full of wrinkles, but her eyes were sharp as knives. "Grandmother Margaret?" Marcus said, surprised. Margaret Morrison was 90 years old. She was William Morrison's mother, and everyone said she was the toughest, smartest person in the whole family. "I'll make the choice," Grandmother Margaret said. Her voice sounded like crackling paper, but it was strong. "Save Robert Hayes first." "What?" Elena Morrison grabbed the wheelchair. "Mother, you're choosing him over your own son." "I have my reasons," the old woman said. Catherine Hayes looked suspicious. "Why would you save my husband instead of your own son?" Grandmother Margaret's wrinkled face didn't change. "Because Robert Hayes knows a secret from 20 years ago. And if he dies tonight, that secret dies with him." She looked straight at Catherine. "A secret about your daughter, Mrs. Hayes." Sarah's heart stopped. "What? A secret about me?" "What secret?" Catherine demanded. But Grandmother Margaret just smiled a strange, sad smile. "Save Robert Hayes. Let him wake up. Then we'll all learn the truth together." She turned her wheelchair around. "Dr. Williams, tell Dr. Chin to operate on Robert Hayes first. That's my final decision." Dr. Williams looked confused, but he nodded and hurried away. Elena Morrison fell to her knees. "Mother, you just killed William. You killed your own son." "No," Grandmother Margaret said softly. "I'm saving this family from a lie that's poisoned us for 20 years. William would understand." Marcus pulled away from Sarah. His face was full of pain and anger. "My father is dying, and you're talking about secrets?" He looked at Sarah like she was a stranger. "What secret? What is she talking about?" "I don't know." Sarah felt tears running down her face. "Marcus, I swear I don't know." But even as she said it, a cold feeling crept into her chest. A feeling that said, everything you thought you knew is wrong. Everything is about to change. In the emergency room down the hall, doctors rushed around Robert Hayes, preparing him for surgery. And in another room, William Morrison lay alone, his heart beating slower and slower. The choice had been made. But the real nightmare was just beginning, because Grandmother Margaret was right about one thing. There was a secret, a terrible secret about Sarah Hayes, a secret about who she really was, and why these two families have been tied together for so long. And when the truth came out, when everyone learned what had been hidden for 20 years, it would destroy everything. The rain kept falling outside. Inside the hospital, Sarah held on to Marcus one last time before he pulled away and walked toward his dying father's room. "I'll never forgive your family for this," Marcus said without turning around. Sarah stood alone in the bright, cold hallway, surrounded by strangers in white coats. And she wondered, who am I? What secret could be so terrible that it's worth a man's life? Soon she would find out, and she would wish she never had. 3 days passed like a nightmare Sarah couldn't wake up from. Her father, Robert Hayes, survived the surgery. Dr. Chin saved his life, but he was still asleep, trapped in a coma with tubes and wires all over his body. Marcus's father, William Morrison, died that same night. Sarah went to the funeral. She wore a black dress and stood in the back of the church, crying quietly. Marcus saw her there, but he didn't come over. He didn't smile. He didn't even look at her for more than a second. It felt like someone had cut her heart in half. After the funeral, everything got worse. The Morrison family blamed the Hayes family. The Hayes family said it wasn't their fault. Lawyers got involved. Angry phone calls happened late at night. And then the detective came. His name was Detective Rodriguez. He was a short man with gray hair and tired eyes that seemed to see everything. He knocked on the door of the Hayes mansion in the Hamptons on a cold Thursday morning. Sarah's mother, Catherine, let him in. "What do you want, Detective?" "I want to talk about the car crash," Detective Rodriguez said. He pulled out a folder full of papers and photos. "Because it wasn't an accident, Mrs. Hayes. Someone cut the brake lines on both cars. This was attempted murder." Sarah gasped. She'd been listening from the stairs. Catherine's face went pale. That's impossible. I have proof. The detective spread photos across the fancy coffee table. See these cut marks? Someone used a blade, and they did it on the same night, probably within an hour of each other. He looked up at Catherine. Someone wanted both Robert Hayes and William Morrison dead. The question is, who? The Morrisons, Catherine said quickly. They've been trying to take our company for years. William Morrison was jealous of my husband's success. Detective Rodriguez shook his head slowly. William Morrison is dead, Mrs. Hayes. Why would he kill himself? Catherine had no answer. The detective turned and saw Sarah on the stairs. You must be Sarah Hayes. I need to talk to you, too. Sarah came down slowly, her legs feeling wobbly. I don't know anything about the crash. Maybe not about the crash, Detective Rodriguez said. But I've been digging into your family history, and I found something very interesting. He pulled out an old newspaper article. 20 years ago, there was another car crash. A woman named Lisa Chin died. She was pregnant. Her husband was driving, and he survived, but the baby died too. I don't understand, Sarah said. What does that have to do with me? Detective Rodriguez's eyes got soft, like he felt sorry for her. Lisa Chin was engaged to William Morrison before she married someone else. And that someone else? His name was Thomas Bennett. He worked for the Morrison family. Sarah's heart started beating fast. So, after Lisa died, her husband Thomas disappeared. He left New York and was never heard from again. The detective pulled out another paper. But 6 months after Lisa's death, Robert and Catherine Hayes adopted a baby girl. A 6-month-old baby with no birth records, no hospital files, nothing. He looked straight at Sarah. That baby was you. The room started spinning. That's a lie. Catherine jumped up. Sarah's our daughter. No, Mrs. Hayes. She's your adopted daughter. And I think... Detective Rodriguez paused. I think Sarah is actually Lisa Chen's daughter. I think the baby survived that crash 20 years ago, and someone hid the truth. Sarah couldn't breathe. She looked at her mother, at Catherine, and whispered, Is it true? Am I adopted? Catherine's face crumbled. Tears ran down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered. Yes, you're adopted. But we loved you. We raised you as our own. Why didn't you tell me? Sarah felt anger burning in her chest now, hot and fierce. Because your real father, Thomas Bennett, he begged us to hide you, Catherine said. He said someone dangerous was after him. Someone who caused the crash that killed Lisa. He said you weren't safe if anyone knew you were alive. Who? Detective Rodriguez demanded. Who was after them? Before Catherine could answer, the front door slammed open. Daniel Morrison walked in, and he wasn't alone. Behind him came Marcus, looking angry and confused. And behind Marcus came Grandmother Margaret in her wheelchair, pushed by a nurse. We heard everything, Daniel Morrison said. His kind eyes weren't kind anymore. They were cold. We bugged your house, Mrs. Hayes. We needed to know the truth. You did what? Catherine shouted. Marcus stared at Sarah. You're Lisa Chen's daughter? My father's old girlfriend's daughter. Sarah couldn't speak. She just nodded. This changes everything, Grandmother Margaret said from her wheelchair. Her voice was stronger now, almost excited. Don't you see? If Sarah is Lisa's daughter, then she might also be William's daughter. William and Lisa were together before she married Thomas Bennett. We need a DNA test. Sarah felt like she might throw up. You think William Morrison was my real father? It's possible, Daniel Morrison said. He looked at Sarah with new eyes, like he was seeing her for the first time. Lisa broke up with William suddenly. She married Thomas Bennett very quickly. Maybe she was already pregnant with William's baby. Detective Rodriguez held up his hand. Wait, if that's true, then Sarah Hayes is actually Sarah Morrison. She's the biological daughter of William Morrison. That means she has a right to his company, his money, everything. Marcus's face went white. No, that's insane. But Grandmother Margaret was smiling. Finally, the truth. She looked at Sarah. Child, I knew there was something special about you the first time I saw you with Marcus. You have Lisa's eyes and William's stubborn chin. Sarah backed away from all of them. Stop. Just stop. I don't want to be a Morrison. I don't want any of this. Too bad, said a new voice. Everyone turned. A woman stood in the doorway. She was beautiful, with long black hair and cold eyes. She wore an expensive suit and high heels that clicked on the marble floor as she walked in. Who are you? Detective Rodriguez asked. My name is Sophia Bennett, the woman said, and I'm Thomas Bennett's sister, Sarah's aunt. She looked at Sarah. I've been searching for you for 20 years, sweetheart, ever since they stole you from my brother. Catherine gasped. We didn't steal her. Thomas gave her to us. Because you threatened him. Sophia's voice was sharp as broken glass. The Hayes family told my brother that if he didn't give up Sarah, they'd make sure he was blamed for Lisa's death. They had power, money, lawyers. He was just a scared man who'd lost his wife. So he ran away and hid. And he died 10 years ago, still afraid, still in hiding. That's not true. Catherine cried, but Sophia wasn't finished. She turned to grandmother Margaret and Daniel Morrison. And your family is just as guilty. William Morrison caused a crash that killed Lisa Chun. He found out she was pregnant with his baby, and he wanted her back. But Lisa refused. So William got drunk and followed her car that night. He crashed into them on purpose. Liar, Marcus shouted. Sophia pulled out her phone and pressed play. A man's voice filled the room. It was scratchy and old, from an old recording. I didn't mean to kill her. I just wanted to scare them, make them stop. But I lost control. The car flipped. Lisa died, and I've lived with that guilt every day since. It was William Morrison's voice. Everyone stood frozen. Where did you get that? Daniel Morrison whispered. William sent it to my brother 5 years before Thomas died, Sophia said. It was his confession, his apology. But an apology doesn't bring back the dead, does it? Detective Rodriguez took the phone. This is evidence of vehicular manslaughter. Even though William Morrison is dead, this changes everything. Grandmother Margaret looked like she'd aged 100 years in 1 minute. My son, my William, he killed that poor girl? Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. Her whole life was a lie. Her parents weren't her parents. Her boyfriend's dead father was her real father. And that same father had killed her real mother. It was too much. Too much truth. Too much pain. There's one more thing, Sophia said quietly. She looked at Sarah with something like pity. The person who cut the brakes on the cars last week? It was Catherine Hayes. What? Sarah screamed. Catherine fell to her knees, sobbing. I had to. Robert found out the truth about William. He was going to tell everyone. He was going to give Sarah to the Morrisons. I couldn't lose my daughter. She looked up at Sarah with wild eyes. I did it for us, for our family. You tried to kill your own husband, Detective Rodriguez said, pulling out handcuffs. Catherine Hayes, you're under arrest. As the detective led Catherine away, Sarah collapsed onto the couch. Marcus sat down next to her, not touching her, but close. I don't know what we are to each other now, Marcus said softly. Half-siblings? Nothing? Everything. Sarah looked at him. I still love you. Is that wrong? I don't know, Marcus admitted. But maybe we can figure it out. Together. Grandmother Margaret wheeled herself over to them. There will be a DNA test. We'll know for sure if you're William's daughter. And if you are, she took Sarah's hand. Then you're a Morrison. And the Morrisons take care of their own. Daniel Morrison nodded. We'll make this right, Sarah. Somehow. Sophia Bennett stood by the window, watching the police car drive away with Catherine. There's going to be a trial. Everyone will know the truth now. About William. About Thomas. About everything. Sarah closed her eyes. I just want it to be over. It's not over yet, Detective Rodriguez said, returning to the room. There's still one question we haven't answered. If William Morrison confessed to causing the crash 20 years ago, why did someone try to kill both him and Robert Hayes last week? What secret was worth killing for now? Everyone looked at each other. And Sarah realized the detective was right. There was still one more secret, one more lie hiding in the shadows. And until they found it, none of them were safe. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood in front of Morrison Tower, the tallest building in Manhattan. Her hands were shaking. Inside that building, both families were meeting for the first time since Catherine's arrest. And today, they would finally learn the last secret, the one that explained everything. Marcus walked up beside her. "Are you ready?" Sarah looked at him. They'd done the DNA test 3 days ago. The results came this morning. William Morrison was definitely her biological father. That made Sarah and Marcus half-siblings. They could never be boyfriend and girlfriend again. But somehow they were still friends. Maybe even closer than before. "I'm ready," Sarah said. "Let's end this." They walked into the building together. The conference room on the 45th floor was full of people. Grandmother Margaret sat at the head of the long table in her wheelchair. Daniel Morrison stood by the window, looking out at the city. Sophia Bennett sat with her lawyer, flipping through papers. And at the other end of the table sat Robert Hayes. Sarah's father, no, her adopted father, had finally woken up from his coma 5 days ago. He looked thin and tired, but his eyes were clear and sharp. "Hello, Sarah," Robert said quietly. Sarah didn't know what to call him anymore. "Dad? Robert? Mr. Hayes?" So she just nodded. Detective Rodriguez walked in, carrying a large box. "Thank you all for coming. I know this has been hard for everyone, but I promise you answers, and today you'll get them." He put the box on the table. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected place. William Morrison's office safe. Daniel Morrison turned from the window. "We opened that safe last week. It was empty." "No," the detective said. "It had a false bottom. And inside we found these." He pulled out a stack of old letters, photographs, and a journal with a leather cover. Grandmother Margaret leaned forward. "What are those?" "William Morrison's private journal from 20 years ago," Detective Rodriguez said. "He wrote everything down. And I mean everything." He opened the journal and started reading. "March 15th, 20 years ago, Lisa told me today that she's pregnant. It's my baby, but she won't marry me. She says I drink too much, that I'm not ready to be a father. She's going to marry Thomas Bennett instead. He's a good man. Boring, but good. Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm not good enough for her." Sarah felt tears starting, but she blinked them away. The detective kept reading. "April 2nd, Lisa married Thomas today. I didn't go to the wedding. I got drunk instead. Mother says I need to move on, but how can I? That's my baby Lisa's carrying. My child. June 10th, I followed them tonight. I don't know why. I just needed to see her. But when I saw Thomas holding her, helping her into the car, being everything I'm not, I got so angry. I started drinking in my car. And then I started driving. I just wanted to scare them. Just wanted to remind them I existed." Detective Rodriguez's voice got quieter. "June 10th later, I killed her. I crashed into their car, and I killed Lisa. The car flipped 3 times. I watched it happen. Thomas survived, but Lisa, God, Lisa died right there on the highway. And the baby, everyone said the baby died too." Grandmother Margaret made a choking sound. "Stop. Please stop." But the detective continued. "June 11th, I wanted to die. I should have died. But Mother saved me. She called her lawyers. She paid off the police investigators. She made sure no one knew I was drunk, that I'd caused a crash. She told me we'd say it was an accident. Bad weather, bad luck, and I let her, because I'm a coward." Daniel Morrison slammed his fist on the table. "My brother was a murderer, and my mother covered up?" Grandmother Margaret was crying now, tears running down her wrinkled face. "I thought I was protecting the family. I thought if William went to prison, it would destroy the Morrison name forever. So yes, I paid people off. I buried the evidence. I protected my son." She looked at Sarah. "And I've regretted it every single day since." Detective Rodriguez wasn't finished. But here's the part you don't know. The part even William didn't know until years later. He pulled out a hospital record from the box. The baby didn't die in the crash. She survived. Thomas Bennett pulled his baby daughter from the wreckage before the paramedics arrived. He hid her, kept her alive, and eventually gave her to Robert and Catherine Hayes to raise. Robert Hayes spoke for the first time. Thomas came to me because we'd been friends in college. He was terrified. He said people were following him, threatening him. He needed his daughter to disappear completely. So Catherine and I adopted Sarah in secret. No legal papers, no records. We just took her in and loved her as our own. But someone found out, Detective Rodriguez said. He pulled out more papers. 2 weeks before the crash that nearly killed you, Robert, you received an anonymous letter. It told you the truth, that Sarah was William Morrison's biological daughter, and it demanded money to keep quiet. Blackmail, Sophia Bennett said. Someone was blackmailing both families. Exactly, the detective agreed. And Robert Hayes decided to tell William Morrison the truth rather than pay. He thought they could handle it together, both families supporting Sarah. But someone didn't want that to happen. Who? Marcus demanded. Who sent the letter? Who cut the brakes? Detective Rodriguez smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Catherine Hayes cut the brakes on Robert's car. She's already confessed to that. She was afraid of losing Sarah. But Catherine didn't cut the brakes on William Morrison's car. Everyone went silent. Then who did? Sarah whispered. The detective turned and looked directly at Daniel Morrison. No, Marcus said. Uncle Daniel? That's impossible. But Daniel Morrison's face had gone white. His hands were trembling. You did it, Detective Rodriguez said. You found out that Sarah was William's daughter. You realized that if Sarah was a Morrison, she'd inherit half of everything. Half of the company, half of the money, half of the power. And that meant less for you. Daniel laughed, but it sounded wrong. That's crazy. I love my brother. You loved his money more, the detective said. We found receipts for the tools you bought. We found security footage of you near the Morrison mansion garage the night before the crash. And we found the anonymous letter you sent to Robert Hayes. Your fingerprints are all over it. Daniel's face twisted with anger. So what if I did it? William was dying anyway. The doctor said he had 6 months, maybe a year. I just sped things up a little. And that Hayes family? They stole William's daughter. They deserved to suffer too. You tried to kill 2 men because of money, Grandmother Margaret said. Her voice was ice cold. Your own brother. He was already dead. Daniel screamed. And he deserved it for what he did to Lisa. Everyone in this family is a liar and a killer. I just wanted what was rightfully mine. Detective Rodriguez pulled out his handcuffs. Daniel Morrison, you're under arrest for attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. As the detective led Daniel away, he kept screaming, You're all guilty. All of you. The Morrisons, the Hayes, you all got blood on your hands. The door slammed shut, and silence filled the room. Sarah stood up. Her legs felt wobbly, but her voice was strong. He's right, you know. Everyone here has lied. Everyone here has secrets. My birth father killed my birth mother. My adopted mother tried to kill my adopted father. My grandmother covered up a murder. And my uncle tried to kill people for money. She looked around at all of them. I could hate you. All of you. But what good would that do? Hate is what caused all of this. Lies and hate and secrets. Grandmother Margaret reached out a wrinkled hand. What do you want, child? Tell us. What would make this right? Sarah took a deep breath. I want the truth. All of it. Written down, made public. William Morrison's confession about killing Lisa Chun. It needs to be released. The police cover-up, Grandmother Margaret paying people off. That needs to come out too. And every penny that was used to hide the truth, I want it donated to organizations that help families torn apart by drunk driving. That will destroy the Morrison name, Grandmother Margaret said. Good, Sarah replied. Maybe it should be destroyed. Maybe both families need to start over, building something honest instead of something built on lies. Robert Hayes smiled weakly. You're braver than all of us combined. Marcus stood up and walked to Sarah. What about us? Can we still be family? Sarah looked at her half-brother and smiled. We'll always be family, Marcus. Just a different kind of family than we thought. She looked at everyone in the room. All of us can be family, if we choose honesty over secrets and forgiveness over revenge. Sophia Bennett nodded. Your mother, Lisa, would be proud of you. She always believed people could change, that truth could heal. Over the next 6 months, everything changed. The truth came out in newspapers and on television. The Morrison family name took a hit, but the company survived. Grandmother Margaret retired and gave control of Morrison Enterprises to Marcus, with Sarah as co-owner. They renamed it Chin Morrison Industries in honor of Lisa. Catherine Hayes went to trial for attempted murder. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Sarah visited her once a month, because even though Catherine had done terrible things, she'd also been the only mother Sarah had ever known. Robert Hayes recovered completely. He sold his real estate company and started a nonprofit helping adopted children find their birth families the right way, with honesty and support. Daniel Morrison was sentenced to 25 years in prison for attempted murder. And Sarah? She went back to college. She studied social work. She started a foundation in her mother Lisa's name, helping families affected by drunk driving. She made sure that William Morrison's story was told, not to shame him, but to show that even good people make terrible mistakes, and that hiding those mistakes only makes things worse. On the 1-year anniversary of the crash, Sarah stood in front of Lisa Chen's grave. Marcus stood beside her. So did Sophia Bennett, Robert Hayes, and even Grandmother Margaret in her wheelchair. I never got to meet you, Mom, Sarah said to the gravestone. But I'm going to make you proud. I'm going to live a life full of truth. No more secrets. No more lies. Just honesty, even when it's hard. Marcus put his arm around his half-sister's shoulder. We both will. And as the sun set over the cemetery, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Because she'd learned that families aren't just about blood. They're about choice. They're about choosing to forgive, choosing to be honest, choosing to love even when it's hard. The secret that destroyed everything had finally set them all free. The end open book a message from this story. Sometimes the truth hurts. Sometimes it breaks everything apart. But lies hurt worse, and they break things that can never be fixed. If you're keeping a secret that's eating you up inside, find someone safe to tell. A parent, a teacher, a counselor, a trusted friend. Secrets grow bigger and scarier in the dark. But in the light, with people who care about you, even the hardest truths can be faced together. And if someone has hurt you or your family, remember, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let that hurt control your whole life. It means building something new and honest from the broken pieces. Did this story make you feel something? Did it make you think? Here's what you can do. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. A friend, a family member, someone who's struggling with secrets or forgiveness. Talk about it. Ask the hard questions. Should we always tell the truth, even when it hurts? Can people who've done terrible things earn forgiveness? What makes a real family, blood or choice? Write your own story. What secrets have you seen in movies or books? How did they turn out? What would you do if you were Sarah? Be brave with your own truth. If you're carrying something heavy, reach out to a trusted adult. Organizations like Rain 1-800-656-4673, Crisis Text Line, text home to 741-741, or Teen Line, text teen to 839-863, are there to help. Support organizations that help families torn apart by tragedy, just like Sarah did in the story. Mothers Against Drunk Driving MAD, the National Center for Victims of Crime Foster Care and Adoption Support Organizations. Remember, the strongest people aren't the ones who never break. They're the ones who break, then put themselves back together with honesty and courage. Now go be brave. Go be honest. Go build something beautiful from whatever broken pieces life has given you. And never forget, you are stronger than your secrets.